This isn't the first time I've been sent back, Kate says. I can prove to you that I'm coming from the future. I know exactly when the caretakers will bring in our meals and what we will have for breakfast. I know when the caretakers who want to help us escape will contact us. I know what he will say. I know many things. I also know the Lasethi is an informant to the Lasethi. We can't let her know about our escape plan or she will tell them immediately. I'm going to try and convince the others myself, but you need to be the one to tell your brother about this. You won't trust anyone else. If you're really serious about those things you said, Diane says, then give me a list of everything you know. I'll make sure to give it to Jason as soon as possible. I'm sure he would be much more inclined to take you seriously if he sees the proof with his own eyes. Don't worry, Kate says. You'll have the list. I'm going to make sure that everything goes right this time. I won't fail you again. Oh, she will fail again, Araka says. I have no doubt about that. Let's see if we can speed things up a bit, because there are going to be a lot of rescue attempts to go through. She then began to show me the key events that happened next, except this time around all the actions were summarized much more succinctly. I forgot what that word means actually. I'm guessing more organized is what it means. In order to be able to paint a larger picture. For the first few attempts, Kate tried to focus on two things: getting the elementalist siblings on her side and tried to convince the other orphans to follow her escape plan without letting Olivia know. Every time when she was flung back in time, Kate would try to convince Diane and her brother that she was coming from the future by letting them know about very specific things and that were going to happen before that happened. This was enough to convince Diane, but Jason was always skeptical no matter how many details she was providing to him. He thought that she was either using tricks to find out the information or getting some really lucky guesses. Convincing the other orphans to follow her rescue plan was even harder because she couldn't risk telling them about her travels through time, or the fear that they might give this information to the Lasethi. She couldn't really provide any genuine proof that Lasethi caretaker trying to help them was actually trustworthy. The children would only get more suspicious every time she insisted there was nothing to worry about. Therefore, by the end of the day, Kate would either get ratted out by the Lasethi, by one of the orphans, or simply get sent back in time without making any notable progress. She has managed to avoid torture, which is fascinating. Without making any notable progress, it took it many tries to finally find a way to get everyone on her side and to enact their escape plan flawlessly. But what she didn't know was that this was only the beginning of her trial, since saving the orphan was the exact opposite of what she needed to do if she wanted to complete her trial. Wow, I say, as we are now watching Kate struggling to find a way out of her time loop and expect her to repeat the ritual so many times. She must have spent at least a few weeks in this place, if not more. How much time has passed in the real world while Kate has been doing all this stuff? Probably only a few minutes or so, Arka says. Time flows completely differently in each of these worlds that you people are sent to. The dwarf and the mute girl already finished their trial. The healer and the herbalist are still busy with theirs, though. Who the hell is the herbalist? Oh, Kate? No. Fucking Rose? No, there's no way. Why would Rose go through a trial? The dwarf and the mute girl. Okay. Rose is still inside her ritual, I say. Can you show it to me, or would it be too dangerous? Moving between rituals is not a problem because we remain connected to the Magium in a non-corporeal form while we do it, Araka says. It's only when we switch back to our regular bodies that we become vulnerable. So can we go then? I say, sure, I don't see why not. Araka says, I was starting to get a little bored of this ritual anyway. Scenery around us completely changes completely, and we now find ourselves back in Thelius in the middle of an empty alleyway of what appears to be one of the richer districts from the city, where a 19-year-old Rose is currently on her knees with tears flowing from her eyes. Please stop making me do this, Rose says while crying. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What's happening here? I ask Araka. How did it come to this? I'm trying to find out. Araka says, just give me a few minutes while I take a short look at what's been going on for so far. After about 20 seconds of hearing nothing but sound of Rose's soft weeping, Arika finally seems to have found what she was looking for, and she's now trying to summarize to us what she's seen. Okay, so the ritual seems to be a little different from the others, Araka says. Instead of forcing us to recreate only one event from her past, she actually needs to repeat more of them in succession, because she has to willingly ignore all the slaves that has ever asked her to help, just like she has done in the past, except now she's also being forced to witness what happens with those slaves that she refuses to help. Some of them have been brutally murdered by their masters, some of them have been left to die of hunger, others have been tortured non-stop for weeks until they went crazy, all sorts of stuff. And I don't think this ritual of hers will end until she gets to see the fate of every single one of the slaves she's ever ignored during her lifetime. What are the cases where nothing really bad happened to the slaves afterward? I'm pretty sure that those are just being skipped. Arka says it wouldn't make for much of a show if they didn't cut out the boring parts, now would it? But if she forgets what she said to these slaves, I say, would the ritual just keep going on forever? Nah, Arka says, the ritual has access to her memories, so it knows exactly what she remembers and what she doesn't. If it's something deeply buried in her consciousness and she doesn't want to remember, then she will probably be forced to remember it. But if it's just a matter of no longer knowing the exact words she uses, probably won't make that much of a difference. After all, this ritual's purpose is to maximize her amount of suffering, not to annoy the hell out of her. That is fucking funny, to be honest with you. I suppose that makes sense, I say. Not long after we stopped talking, an 18-year-old girl dressed in dirty, worn clothes is making her way into the alley. She appears to be limping on her right leg. Judging by the look on her face, her messy blonde hair, she's most likely a slave, but I'm not seeing her master anywhere near her. Could it be that she's run away, is now looking for a place to hide? No, Rose says. She gets back up and takes 2 steps back with a look of both shock and fear in her eyes when she sees the slave slowly approaching her. No, not this, anything but this. The slave girl just keeps getting closer and closer until she eventually reaches Rose. And then she grabs both her hands while looking directly into her eyes with a desperate, pleading expression on her face. Please, you have to help me, the slave girl says. My master is looking for me. He will come into this alleyway soon and I can't outrun him. And if I hide in this abandoned shop and you tell him that you saw me go the other way, maybe he'll believe you. I don't have anyone else to ask. You're my only hope. Please don't abandon me. As the slave was talking, Rose was shaking her head left and right over and over with tears in her eyes as she continued to look helplessly at the girl talking to her. When the girl finally finished what she had to say, Rose realized that she was out of time, so she pulled her hand away from her. She wiped her own tears with her sleeve. She then forced a warm smile on her face while she gently grabbed the slave girl's hand and brought her palms together. You should not be doing this, Rose says, as she keeps holding the slave's hands. As a slave, it is your duty to keep serving your master, no matter how harshly he may be treating you. Each one of us has their own purpose in life. We cannot simply run away from it when things get too rough. Slaves are an important part of society, and you should be proud of the contribution you're making towards the betterment of civilization. This is hilarious. She basically did the fate fucking argument, you know, the oh, it's already written in fate. What, we can't really change our fate now, can we? She basically took that and turned it in the most horrible thing you can ever imagine. It's basically like going to a fucking trial of like some murder serial killer, and it's like, oh, it's a canon event. It's the fucking meme. It literally is the fucking meme. It's the fucking canon event meme that's going around nowadays. It's a canon event. A Holocaust, that's the canon event. It's such a horrible meme, but I actually don't like that meme all that much, because I like the concept of it, but it's like it's not that like fun. Most memes are a little bit more fun than this one, but it's alright. Memes are memes, whatever. But this is basically that meme that she is doing right here. But so basically she did this shit with the actual slave in her actual life. That is interesting. I didn't imagine Rose to be doing something like this. Don't worry, I won't let go of your hands until your master comes here to get you. I'm sure that you will be thanking me later after you have had the chance to calm down, think about everything more rationally. With every new sentence she was saying, Rose's voice was getting shakier and shakier, and her eyes were getting watery again. Somehow managed to maintain that same forced smile throughout her whole speech. The slave girl was simply staring at her in disbelief the whole time, hoping against hope that it might all just have been only a cruel joke. When she realized that Rose was being serious, the slave began to desperately pull herself away, but she was in too much of a weakened state to be able to escape Rose's grasp. No, the slave girl screams as she keeps trying to free herself. Let me go. I don't understand. How can you be so cruel? I've done nothing to you, and yet... There she is, shouts a man dressed in extravagant clothing as she enters the alleyway and sees the slave girl. I found her. Get over here, help me capture her. Answering the noble's call, 2 more men also appear to be her lackey and now enter the alley as well. Then all 3 of them head towards Rose and the slave girl. Let go of my hands, the slave girl cries as she attempts to pull herself away, are getting more violent than before. I beg you, I can't go back there. He's going to kill me. You have to understand, you have to. As the noble reaches the girl, Rose lets go of her hands and the man pulls the slave by the arm so violently towards him that he may as well have dislocated her shoulder in the process. I hope you've had your fun, the noble tells the slave with a very angry look in his eyes, because after what you've done today, I will be expecting you to accept your punishment without even the slightest resistance. Do you understand? Yes, sir, the slave girl says with a very meek tone in her voice. as her whole body is trembling in fear. Good, the noble says. He then turns to Rose. Thank you very much for your help, the noble says. Who knows where the slave might have run off to if you hadn't held on to her. Oh, there's no need to thank me, Rose says, still smiling as she's almost about to break into tears. We should all be trying our best to help our fellow citizens in the time of need. I'm sorry, this must have been a very terrifying experience for you, the noble says when he sees Rose on the verge of tears. Please allow me to reward you for your efforts. No, Rose says. Oh, because it would change the timeline. Yeah, that is actually kind of funny as well, because she will have to do this shit again.